May 31st, 2019. It is 28 years, 11 months, and 5 days since I masturbated or used pornography. That's my sobriety date. It's important for me to remember that. Because if you can't remember the last time you used porn, you haven't used it for the end. So knowing your sobriety date is really important to long-term and permanent recovery, one day at a time. That's why I say it, not to brag, but to keep me humble, to remember what that was like 28 years, 11 months, and 5 years. That was devastating to me. And I'm never going to go back there, God willing. We got a question from Ricardo Bonilla from Monterrey, Mexico. He wants to know about wet dreams. And wet dreams are a controversial subject because there's a lot of ignorance around it. Wet dreams are when you're sleeping at night, also called nocturnal emission, when you don't touch yourself and you are orgasmic while you're dead asleep. It's called a wet dream. And there's a lot of controversy about it. Some people think that you can stop that. I do not believe that's true. It's an involuntary thing. And so some people think if you can stop it with your brain somehow, some magical thing, magical thinking. And so if you do that, you lose your sobriety. I disagree with that vehemently because it's a subconscious, it's an unconscious reaction in your body. I've had wet dreams in my life, and it's particularly early on. I've got 28 years. I'm nearly 29. I'll be 29 in less than a month if I make it one day at a time. And I've had wet dreams in the past. And what that indicates to me is that my body has just gathered up semen that it needs to release. And see, with porn and masturbation, what we're doing is we're releasing semen because it releases a chemical called tetrahydrosequinoline in our brain, which relaxes us and calms us. And it becomes dopamine, and it relaxes you the same way alcohol and drugs do. And to do that, if I masturbate or use porn, then what I'm doing is I'm running away from life, which is a cowardly thing to do. See? And that's why we feel shame, because we're acting cowardly. To do that is one thing, but to be orgasmic by no intention or design of your own is nothing. There's nothing you're responsible for about that sort of thing. Now, that's the morality of it. And there's some morality of it. It's like if the intentionality of being orgasmic really matters. Like, for example, if you roll across somebody's foot on a car and you don't mean to, it's an accident. If you do it on purpose, that's a very different thing. But that person's foot is exactly the same thing, whether you're intentional or not. But you can go to jail for hitting somebody with a car, especially on purpose, vehicular violence. So the intention matters, just in law, the same way it does in physics. So it matters whether you're doing it because you're running away because you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling needy or resentful or paranoid or sad or lonely or bitter or rageful. That's acting out, and you lose your sobriety if you do that. But you don't lose your sobriety if it just happens at night and there's nothing that you can do about it. Now, I've got to say, there are two things about it. So that's the morality of it. The physics of it is there's going to be some energy loss when you have a wet dream. There's no doubt about that. One of the things we've learned in PMO recovery, that if you're chaste, you get more energy, you have more clarity, more intentionality, more resilience in social relationships, more power in personal relationships, you have visions, you become more athletic, you make more money because you're really more in tune, you're a better father and a lover and a husband and friend, because that semen is staying inside you and just staying in your system, and you got more energy. It's like having oil in a car engine. It just runs better. So if you have a wet dream, you're not going to feel as good the next day. There's no doubt about it, because that's physics. That's not morality. That's physics. And there's nothing that can be done about that. You're just going to have a loss. But what I've noticed is, if I masturbate, I have a tremendous loss of power. If I just have a wet dream, there's a slight loss of power. And there's nothing that can be done about that loss of power. The other thing you got to be real careful about is, I've seen guys do this, as they really want to come, they really want to be orgasmic. So what they'll do is they'll watch pornography but not touch themselves for hours, and then hope that they have a wet dream. That's not recovery. That's just disease. That's just disease. I knew a guy one time who was a preacher of all things, and he would watch pornography for hours and then just make himself come by not touching himself. And then he called that sobriety, which was just raw sewage disease. If you're doing that, that's running away from life. The problem with this is that we're not facing life on life's terms. The use of pornography and masturbation is because we can't deal with life. We're living life wrong. That's causing us to feel self-hatred, self-loathing, resentful, fearful, obsessive, extreme, cowardly. That's what's wrong, and we have to change our lives. So loading up with images and then hoping you have an orgasm, that's not recovery. If it happens because it's a physical thing, there ain't nothing that you can do about that. And I just say, well, that's just part of life. Last thing about that is when I used to have, and I haven't had wet dream a long time, but when I did, I would start to wake up. And when I did, I would try to, close my muscles up so that I would stop my orgasm in the middle. And then I finally realized that orgasm is a feeling like anything else. And if that feeling is coming, I just need to let it go if I have not tried to start it myself. It's really important to be honest with yourself. You cannot get recovery. You can't get 28 years, 11 months, and 5 days from no porn unless you're honest. That's the most important thing. So you have to ask yourself, am I loading up the gun with pornography and stuff so that I hope I have that? Or is it just a physical reaction I'm having in my body? Ricardo from Mexico, I want to thank you for this question, and we'll see you all in the next video.